Hi, Patrick.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Instagram Live. We're live now from Montreal. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I just thought we'd start off outside and I'd show you what it looks like here on Saint Laurent Boulevard on a snowy Montreal day. It's Snowmageddon. It's the snow that'll never end. How's the weather in New York, Emily?
It was snowing a little bit this morning, but it stopped. It's pretty cold and
Okay.
yeah,
Lovely.
almost
Okay,
the
well,
same.
here we are. Well, we're all going to survive. Here's the show. I just thought we'd start outside and we go inside. So thank you for joining us today for Emilie's Instagram Live Talk. Here we are. Let's go inside the gallery and start to take a look. We have some visitors right now. And whoops, I'm going to have to keep this camera steady. We'd start off
You're doing
with the
great.
title of the show, giving you an overview. So what we thought today is we'd have a little bit of a talk with Emilie, get to know the show, see the show, and take a look at some paintings, talk about her practice, and then ask some questions. And hopefully, if we have enough people who are watching and listening and they'd like to ask some questions, anytime you have questions, you're welcome to ask. Just type in the comments section and we'll get to it. So anyways, welcome, Emilie. This is our show. It's called Computational Dust of Existence. Maybe I'll just introduce you a little bit to Emilie Duval. Emilie is a French-American multidisciplinary visual artist. Her work is defined by research and observation to acknowledge the functionality of our societies. She focuses her interest on a wide range of contemporary matters and translates them into an artistic metaphoric division to extract the very sense of society's structural balance. Emilie, can you just tell us a little bit about your background and where you studied and where you've shown in the past, and maybe better to hear it from you than for me to talk about it.
Okay, so I studied history of art and law because I wanted to be an art auctioneer at the beginning.
Oh, really?
But yes,
I
but
didn't know
since
that. That's amazing.
yeah, but it was too mercantile for me. So the thing is, since I'm a young kid, I have always been driven by economics and art
Okay.
because they are the reflection of society for me. They are arts through the visual, the fact that you have the scenery of how a society is going and how a society is evolving, and for economics because economics are the bones of society. It's everything.
Exactly. I think we're going to get into that a little bit later on. It's a topic that really fascinates me, and I think what we're seeing happening in the world right now is just something that I've kind of been interested in. And sadly, we're seeing it kind of playing out in not a good way right now, but it is something that interests me a lot. So, and before we go on, I want to let you know that Emilie is represented also by Heidi Von Fide Arts in Houston, Texas. Heidi has been a big supporter of Emilie's work, and it's kind of how I first got to know Emilie's work. And I met her. I think we met at Volta, New York, I believe. Is that the first time we met?
We met the first time
Yeah,
at Volta, and then the last time you saw me in New York was for the Armory show, and
the Armory show. Yeah.
you met Heidi, and we went to the MoMA gala and
Oh,
everything. So it was nice.
that was an amazing night at MoMA with
Yes,
Orville Peck. That's really memorable, super exciting.
yes.
And then the pandemic hit, and then we all got sick and went home and just sat in our rooms right after that. So
Yeah,
anyways,
but it was good for creation.
it was good for creation. Very, very exciting. So tell us about the title, Computational Dust of Existence.
So I used this title because so we have our physical entity, you and me, we are physical entities evolving into society. And with the emergence of social medias and the internet, and especially and expanded with the pandemic. I think we have a digital entity, which is our self-reflection. And this digital entity has a strong value, a strong utilitarian value. So the question is our digital entity is going to overcome our physical entity, and we might be just computational dust of existence after, like, not now, not currently, but maybe in the future. So it's a question about the relevance of the physical entity, the relevance of human being as well, with the emergence of AI and the use of algorithms to manage our society. So it's a very wide question. I don't want to judge or to sanction anything. I'm more an observer, and I really want to point some details that might be very important for understanding this surrounding, the digital surrounding, and how we should evolve through that.
I have the sense that things are really accelerating much, much faster. It's kind of exponential. I think, do you get a sense that, is this kind of how you imagined it would be going this quickly? Are we going quickly, or is it just my imagination that it's every day it just progresses more and more in that direction?
It goes quickly. Like, for example, if you take like innovations, also the speed of evolution, it goes faster. Like the time frame is reducing. Sometimes something which was taking like 20 years to evolve, to be developed, now takes maybe 10 years or 5 years. So, and it's because of course, the technologies, it goes faster and faster. Other than that, and you mentioned the war in Ukraine, we envision the life of others through digital networks. So we have a kind of imaginary fiction of the politics of others, of other lives also. If you watch videos of people, you imagine them in a certain way. But we always need to remember that underneath, you have the economic pattern, which keeps you engaged, because as more as you are engaged, as more as you pay attention, you will be willing to interact on the economic level by buying things through advertisements and things like that, or like if you want to mimic someone. And so I think it goes faster, and it changes also our consciousness. It changes the way we see things. And for example, with the war, in the West, we have a certain view because of a certain pattern we are submitted by algorithms to keep us engaged. If you go to the East, it will be a different pattern. So we need to be careful not to create echo chambers that will compete to prevail, and it might not be a good ending on the politic stage. Exactly. So it's a question. So I just saw you zoom into a drawing I added onto my first painting, the satellite of our consciousness, and those drawings represent motherboards, because everything goes through computers, and it's the motherboard of a computer is like the heartbeat, I would say. Like, it's how a computer does exist and does functions. So I wanted to add those motherboards all over my paintings. Also, you have neural networks. It's a computer motherboard. But you have drawings that mimics neural networks, and you have like centralized, decentralized, distributed networks. Of course, there are my imaginary networks, but I think it's because they are going to evolve also. That's why in this series, I embedded a lot of natural elements. Like,
uh,
go
yeah,
ahead.
very much. What I've noticed over the last few years of kind of following your work and working with you is that I find the paintings are becoming much more complex. They're more layered. They're more, you're pushing kind of with layers, and they're more packed with meaning and more references. And I'm sure you've noticed even that your work over the last little while has kind of evolved. And
Yes,
now we're
and
seeing real natural elements in them.
yeah, because society is really, really complex. And we can ask the question, are we are on the verge of a collapse? And of course, a collapse, it's not something which it seems as a doomsday. A collapse, it's a rebirth in a certain way. It's you need to see it in a positive way, not in a negative way, because
Okay.
like also intellectually speaking, because we are in motion. Like society is a very complex symbiosis which is in motion, so you can't stop it. So we need to observe it, and so that's why my paintings are have more and more layers. And
Exactly.
then I added some natural elements, because as we are distance on the physical scale, on the, how I would say, like on the biological scale,
Right.
um, we might forget the environment, the forest. That's why I was putting burning forest, because we are in our own bubble. We use technology and we use electricity, and all those networks, all this electricity is like a kind of new biological elements, but it's getting warmer and warmer. So we need to be careful with that. And you can do a kind of symbolic or parallel with the fact that in our interaction, we are starting to burn as well, to burn ourselves. So it's a kind of, yeah, a parallel.
How do you feel
A
that
metaphor,
a
I was looking
metaphor,
for.
right?
Yeah, I was looking for the word.
How
It's
do you
like,
feel that the last few years of our lockdowns and shutdowns and pandemic, do you think that this has accelerated things, or do you think that has it had an impact?
yeah, I think our consciousness is shifting, because we don't see the other people the same way, because we have been first isolated. So when you are isolated, you are under a certain stress, but also for survival, you recreate your own symbiosis. Like you need to be in symbiosis with your environment. So you create a new environment, you adapt. It's a kind of
Right.
adaptation. That's why when I talk about the collapse, it's more an adaptation, a rebirth, because we are shifting, so our consciousness is shifting. If you see something which is catastrophic, you will be touched, you will act very quickly, but you will forget as well very quickly,
Yeah. So
because
you think it's, I'm sorry, I
sorry.
interrupted. Keep going, keep going.
Because it's also related to time and space. That's why on the burning forest, the other painting, I put a satellite, because it's related to the theory of relativity. And it's how the machine, when I started the painting, I was thinking how a machine can envision the same situation on the infinite level. As human, we see it on only one level, but as the more we interact online, the more we have this kind of sensation of existing on multiple levels. I don't know if you had this kind of experience, but the more you're online, the more imaginary or fictional experiences you can have. So it's
I
a
think
kind
so.
of an infinite way of seeing the same situation, because it's at the same time. So I'm really into also time and space, because it's really important. But the
Right.
machine is way above us, because the machine can envision it like on the infinite scale, and also on different dimensions. We see the first, second on 3 dimensions, but the machine can multiply those dimensions.
I think that there is, what I've noticed is that there's a blurring of all these elements, our real lives, our digital lives, our consciousness. And I think we're experiencing so many things out of the physical self. I mean, we're looking at things online, and I think even now sometimes I feel like I've seen things and I've had an experience that I really didn't actually have. So I think that's what's interesting. Now you'll notice before we go any further, I'm not going to really get too close because I'm worried my camera is going to take a picture of this. But we have these digital scan codes, and if you can, with each painting, if you can explain maybe to everybody what those are and how they work.
Those are QR codes. So if you scan the QR code, you will go through a web page presenting the NFT, which is related to the painting. So
okay, great.
I know you have, like, it's a big trend now, the NFTs. For me, it's more, and you can go online, look at them on OpenSea, but really for me, it's the concept of the digital entity of the painting. So you have the physical entity of the painting itself, and then I create from this painting a digital entity. So I take a photo of the painting, I completely distort. So it's another level of distortion of how we see things. It's a kind of a new consciousness of when you see an image, you create another image through the computer. So the thing is, if you have so many layers, because when I start a painting, I use photos that I find online. So someone creates a photo, and it's really related to labor, also to the fact that you use something as a tool, and the tool is digital. It's the photo. So I start with the photo. I completely transform this photo. This photo can, most of the time, I take it out of the news because the topic interests me. And I completely distort it because I consider when you read something online or on a newspaper, any kind of stories, you will have a kind of distortion because it's your own self that will distort the story because you want to adapt the story to your vision. And it's well known, when you see something, you read something, you always relate to the thing that you are socially connected to. And then I apply those photos, distorted photos, onto the background. So from the photograph who took the photo, published it, connected to a story, me taking it, transform it, it's already multiple layers. And then I add drawings of networks, drawings of computers, and then I add onto the canvas some collages of elements, different elements. It can be burning forest, it can be buildings, any kind of hurricanes. Like in this series, I have like big clouds of hurricanes. Also mountains. On the other paintings, you have a lot of mountains. So I add those collages, and then I spray paint. So it's really like to have multiple layers. This is the electrical grid, because I'm really into the electrical grid. Like, it's going to be a big problem. I'm pretty sure in the future. We don't see it now, but I shouldn't laugh because I will be not happy at all. But we need to figure out about this problem. Sorry, I'm moving.
Okay. Well, maybe what I thought is that this was the first room of the gallery, the entrance, and now what I thought was we'd take a little bit of a look into the second main room. This space is kind of like our main gallery. It's about 28 feet wide and about 60 feet long, so we'll start to take you through that. And this is the rest of the show. You'll see over here, we'll get to this in a few minutes, but that's a video monitor with some NFTs that Emilie has created for the show that go along. They're available on OpenSea. And this is kind of like the main exhibition. So which one should we go to next, Emilie?
You can go to the Revolt and the Shadow, this one, the
This one on the
tool,
back?
yes, because
Okay, great.
it's too large black shade. So it's really simple. It's like your physical entity merging with the digital entity. So the black shadow, the very dark one, is the physical entity, and the other one, which is a little bit more transparent, is the digital self. So it's like when you look at the painting, you don't know if the two shadows are against each other, are in a sort of a combat, or
Yeah.
if they merge, or if they are together. And I think it's the ambiguity of human being in front of the machine. And also it can ask the question of, will the machine become human? Also the fact, will the machine be sentient in the future? How we are going to consider the machine, as I'm pretty sure with because our brain is made of electrical connections, and they can now connect the brain to electrical stimulus. So I'm pretty sure, I don't know when, we will be able to keep the memory of people, of who also, it does exist already through Facebook, like social medias, like they can keep all your memories, your friend memories. So it's like maybe in the far future, or not so far, we will have our digital entity, we will on the digital scale, and what is going to be, how we are going to react towards that. But also we have to think that we are going to evolve. So the new generations, like the new generation is born with an iPhone. So for them, it's natural.
Exactly.
So there, the next step will be like, oh, I don't want to have a physical tool with me. I want to have the iPhone in me. And it's something we might be appalled, like reversed by it now, because we have been raised with tools that we use, and it's linked to the human condition. And you can read Hannah Arendt about the human condition, the tools we use, but this tool might become something inside us. So it's a question.
Right.
So,
But you know, there really is a feeling that all of this technology, I think technology is bad. There's a negativity. There's a fear of it. But what I'm hearing you say is that it's kind of an evolution, and I think there's going to be a whole new generation of people, you know, as unfortunately, but as society moves forward, and people who remembered pre-computer, pre-iPhone. There's going to be a whole new generation that really doesn't have a negative impression or connotation of all of this. So you think when we hear collapse, you were saying earlier, is that it shouldn't trigger alarm bells. It should be actually something that it's a natural evolution and we should embrace it.
It's going to be hard, like
Yeah.
especially on the political scale. It's going to be very hard for the populations. But it has always been like this. It's human nature. It's like circles. It's different, but it's the same pattern. Like I don't know, but for me, it's like everything repeats itself in a different scale, in a different way. But like when you talk about tyrants, they are all the same. And you will always have a new tyrant coming, or a new savior coming. And it's also how society needs to create those people. So it's how we create our future. We are part of it. Some people want certain things, others they want different other things, but it's hard to explain. But we need to be, I think, we need to be tolerant, and to understand what surrounds us, to communicate with others, to
Yeah.
be less in the contradictions and in the opposition. I think we need to go together, and that's why I really wanted to put some mountains onto my paintings, because they are the natural elements. But also, if you don't respect your environment, if you don't respect, if you don't understand your environment, you will perish. If you climb a mountain without knowing the rules, you will perish. So it's something we need to be careful with, like to understand our surroundings and to respect it. And also, above the two large shadows are, for the revolt and the shadow, you have those big lines, and those big lines are the networks that connect them.
Am I in the right place here?
It's the other one, the big one we started with.
Up there, exactly.
Yeah, you have those
Okay.
lines, and the lines are like above them, and it's like that's why I wrote revolt, because it's really like a self. And I think we always see, like, we always want to blame the other, but we need to understand ourselves and to be, I don't know how to say that, but to try to be within the environment, but to like to merge with the environment.
Mm-hmm.
By respecting.
A few years back, we curated a show here called Structures of Power. And something that really has always interested me is that I never really believed that we have free will. And the lives that we live every day, I feel like we're living in some sort of corporate structure where everything is kind of manipulated. I know it's a negative kind of cynical approach to things, but I feel like every decision that we make, everything that we do, every product that we buy, everything that we participate in is kind of, we're in a world where everything is, there's some sort of predetermined structure for everything that we're doing. And what I find interesting today with the war in Ukraine is that we're not just seeing simply a war, but we're seeing kind of an international reaction to a war. And then we're looking at all the geopolitical issues, all the sanctions, and we're looking at how kind of oil and money and currencies and funds and governments and corporations and war and ammunition and technology it's really more than ever right now. I feel like we're witnessing all of this playing out in right before our eyes. And it's interesting because before we opened the show, there was no war, and now there's a war. And I find that this show is so relevant right now. How do you see your work now connecting and being relevant within this kind of like particular zeitgeist?
So first, I was like, I'm really like, you can hear me?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, okay. I wasn't sure because I couldn't hear anything.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay.
So I did like for Structure of Powers, I think it was for this show, I exhibited a painting called Beyond Simulation, which was a military parade in Russia. And I was really attracted by Russia, the power, but also the fiction of the power, like how Putin was pulling out his military people and his force. And it was really about the force you show to others through digital networks, because it was just at the beginning of the pandemic. So nobody was on the site. Everything was watched through TV or YouTube channel and things like that. So it was really the question of the power. And so with the current situation, So I'm using about how we don't have any free will. First, we always need to think that everything relates to economics. For me, it's like you always have a choice for consumption. If you want to stop to consume, it's really hard. It's really hard, but we always have a kind of choice. But this choice will be always constrained by our social background. So since we are born, we are constrained by the social background. And then but you're right, on the other hand, to survive, financially speaking, we don't have any free will because we need to be inadequate with the economics and with what society tells us to do to make sure we survive, economically speaking, to this society, because if you don't survive, economically speaking, you disappear. It's also the question of having the access to digital tools, computers, because if you don't, you will disappear as well, especially if you have a business or things like that. That's why, like the paintings you are showing are more related to its forests, and those forests are completely disappearing onto the digital scale. But we are part of the system. It's also something I want to tell. If we want to have a free will, we need to, in a way, establish our own rules, which might be in the opposition of what others want or how others see you. So it's hard. It's a very tricky question, and it's hard to do it. And I guess it's some people will speak about the blue pill, the red pill. Do we want to be under the influence of what we are supposed to do in a society driven by algorithms? Do we want to oppose this society? The only thing is, currently it's fine. Well, in the US, in Canada, it's fine, but we have less and less liberty, I think, like liberty on the political scale. And what we see currently, but because it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years. And also we don't want to see the truth most of the time. We have things like, for Putin, I was listening Kasparov. Kasparov is Garry Kasparov, the famous Czech player, is really advocating for democracy. And Putin didn't appear overnight. He was there for, like, I don't know, 20 years. And
exactly.
And a guy from the KGB who always said, I want to go back to the old days of Russia. He was saying it to everyone, but we don't want to see the truth. And I've done so many paintings about the fact that we don't want to see the reality. We don't want to see the truth because it's hard, and we'd rather be in our own bubble than to oppose the truth and maybe be destabilized. So I think things don't happen overnight. It's also for the environment. Like, you are environmentalists or scientists that are saying all the time, okay, we need to be careful with the climate change. But no, we are still moving forward until we reach the wall, and then we will rebound, but with casualties. That's it. But it has been like that for decades.
So
And
it's really
that's why
human.
I don't want to see any negativity or anything. It is what it is. It's human nature.
It's human nature. Do you feel like we wait until the very last minute, until we've hit the wall, and then we change?
Yes, no, definitely yes. I think
Against,
so.
because we have to.
We have to it's how you grew up in a way.
Yeah. So maybe I have two more questions, but I think let's talk about the NFTs and then we'll close off with the big question. But the NFTs, let's talk about those. There's a series of new NFTs that you created for this exhibition. They go along with these works. They're available on OpenSea.com. For in a very quick nutshell, how do you tell somebody who doesn't know anything about NFTs or knows very little, guide us very quickly through the creation of an NFT and what it signifies?
Okay. So for the show, I created 9 NFTs. They are the digital entity of, so each painting has its own NFT. So it's the digital entity of the painting. And how you create an NFT, it's really simple. So you create an image like you would do for any kind of image, a GIF image, JPEG, or even a small video. And then you go on the blockchain and you mint. So you need to go on a platform. You can use OpenSea, you can use Super Rare, different platforms. You mint it. So it means you register this image onto the blockchain and then you can sell it. That's it. The only thing is, compared to another image, this image, as soon as you have minted it, it's in the blockchain, so it relates, it's registered onto the blockchain. So it's on a ledger. So you know that you created this image, it's you, it has a particular number, and then each time it's exchanged, you can follow your image. But it's not really different from any other image. It's like just people know that you are the owner, the primary owner of the image. And then you can sell it with cryptos, like people, they can buy it with Ethereum or different cryptos. They just need a wallet and that's it. It's pretty simple.
So it's a natural evolution, a natural extension of the work that you're doing
Yes.
on canvas and on paper. So it is, do you have to change your perspective or your approach as an artist?
It gives me another dimension. In fact, I have like for me, it's a playground. It's another dimension. And if you go on the digital scale, for example, if you go on the metaverse where you have lands and shops, you can have art on this digital scale. So we need to see it on it's another dimension where you can do some exchange. So it's a new world, in fact.
It's a new world.
Yes.
And it's exciting, and we don't know where it's going. As a gallerist and as somebody who works with artists all the time, it's very innovative. It's new. It's the new frontier where everybody's trying now to figure it out, see how it works. It's evolving all the time.
Yes.
So how does the creation of the NFTs inform your paintings in reverse?
So I do the painting, I create my painting, I finish my painting, and then I take the photo of the painting, and then I transform this photo into an NFT. So I another image. So most of the time, like for example, this one compared to the painting, which is digital habitat. So the NFT is called digital habitat. If you see the painting, it has the same shape, but it will have different elements. Maybe a deepness that you can't have with the painting, and also a kind of transparency. Because for me, the digital scale has a kind of transparency, is a kind of a shadow of ourselves.
Very interesting. Well, I think It has been the perfect show at the perfect time. We had discussed the future of society. Now, if what do you want us to know? I think we've touched on this already, but I thought we'd close off, and then I'm going to ask you a little bit about what you're doing in New York and how you're kind of transitioning from Texas to New York right now. But are you optimistic about the future? Are you pessimistic? Are you neutral? Are you just willing to let it all play out?
Uh, I don't want to be negative, but I'm like, intellectually speaking, I'm really like, it's a playground. Humanly speaking, I'm not really optimistic on the human scale, like on the feelings and things like that. But on the other way, we need to see, like, we need to evolve, maybe to learn from computers and algorithms and AI. As the AI learns from us, we need to learn from it. And we just need to embrace the world as it is and try to, I guess, as an artist, my paintings, I hope my paintings give a little bit of intellectual joy. I don't know, like a brightness, intellectually speaking, and also with the design and the visual, something which I really want to share things, like to make people knowing more about their surroundings. So, and not to be too pessimistic, but more like to understand what surrounds us. Even if I'm not optimist on the human level, but I'm still have, we are here and we need to see ourselves, the beautiful things of as we create and things like that. I don't know, it's really hard to say.
No, I appreciate it. Well, if anybody has any questions, we have one question from Unpaid Traffic, and it's, do you think machines and algorithms will converge to a singular way of thinking and not leave room for human creation and artistic innovation?
I think it will be a different scale. Like they will merge, definitely. Like I'm pretty sure we are going to merge with the machine. And so the creativity, I think human must be creative. It's it's the thing which defines us. So from the animal. So even if we merge with the machine and us, we will be creative. We will create something different. It's something we don't know yet, but trust me, we will create something completely new. And so I think, yeah.
So science fiction becomes science reality in a way.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Thank you for your question on paid traffic. Anybody else? Well, Emilie, thank you very much. I think it was a great talk. You're in New York right now. You kind
Oh
of
yes, I
have a
forgot to
studio
tell.
there now. You're transitioning. You're starting to take your practice to New York and start to work there. Oh, we have another question. Are our democracies at risk in a digital era where rules and laws could be decided by algorithms? Very interesting. That's exactly my area of interest. Excellent question.
So it's a very good question. It's tricky because democracy, it's not one, you don't have one democracy. You have multiple democracies. If we follow algorithms, depends where you are, they will drive you in a certain way, which might be more or less democratic, because if you take like direct democracy, it's not parliamentary democracy, so it's different. I think the problem is, and I was talking earlier about echo chambers, how we like to live in our own bubble, and for an economic purpose, you and I think it's driven by algorithms. Those echo chambers are, in fact, opposing each other to see which one will be on the top of the other one with the more attention. So to keep people in the attentive mode and to make profit, you will keep the echo chamber which generates the highest profit. So it's not easy to answer, because on the digital scale and the fact that we use algorithm, it's a kind of medieval time where you have small entities, small castle, I would say, like with groups of people organized, and they are like against each other. But we can lose democracy so rapidly because we are scared, we are afraid, and if also we need to be very, very aware that algorithms keep our engagement on the negative scale, not on the positive scale. And it's how you lose democracy, because people, they imagine, especially when you use social medias, you are far away from the reality, the physical reality. You will be driven by the negativity of certain situation that might not be so negative. So it's how you might lose democracy.
Democracies. I think it's, you know, I've had this conversation a few times, and there's a generation, our parents' generation, that lived through World War II. They've lived through a lot of different, not everybody's lived in North America. A lot of immigrants who've come to North America have come from countries where they've experienced things that we've never really experienced here in the West. And so I think we have this idea here in the West that democracies are supposed to thrive forever. But for many people around the world, it's not the case, and they've experienced things. And you know, my parents were born before World War II, and they grew up during the war, and they always had stories that we couldn't comprehend. But lately, they're starting to become, they're taking on a different reality and we're gaining a different understanding of all the stories they told us about what it was like to be living in authoritative societies. So, I mean, I won't get into all the personal things, but it is interesting that there are a lot of people now who took democracy for granted. We've had such peace and prosperity over the last few decades that it is interesting to see how people's perception is changing, especially a new generation that is experiencing all this for the first time.
Oh yes, definitely. I think with our parents, we are quite the last generation that has a certain sense of what a war is.
Right.
But with Ukraine, for the new generation, it becomes more reality. So
Right.
they might learn from it at the expense of others. But I hope at least people will wake up and react. Like,
I hope so.
it's something that might happen, and it will be great, in fact, and I think it already happened. Like Europe is getting together instead of fighting.
Right. It's very encouraging.
Yes, and we are supporting each other, like a lot of people in the US are supporting as well. So, and they also try to understand the Russian people, but Putin is not Russia. You have people, and they might disagree, but they might not have a voice, because if they try to exert their voice, they might be killed or going to jail. So, and I like to see that we can have access to different point of views. Like, I'm watching TikTok. Some people think it's completely dumb, but I think it's really interesting because between terrific stories about people flying Ukraine. You will have very dumb videos, but it's good to learn, to see how we are all the time in face of those kind of feed. So we can distinguish the important from the unimportant things, and not to forget the important things.
Right, exactly. And I think there's something to be learned, even from the unimportant things. I feel like there's always something to be learned, because if it's happening, there's a reason that it's happening.
Yes.
And I find that to dismiss things that seem to us are ridiculous or trite or juvenile, I think it's kind of to shut yourself off to new ideas, and to be able to have the ability to digest and absorb and analyze and process new ideas, new ways of thinking, because I think the medium may change, but the sentiments are always kind of genuine.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, I think it's important.
Emilie,
So thank
is there
you.
anything else that we didn't talk about that you want to mention?
No,
That's always how I like to end my little things.
Yes. No, after that, it will be the description of each painting, and each painting. I just wanted to say, if you go and see the show, or if you go and see the paintings, each painting is like the cover of a book. It tells a story. And if you unravel all the little details, you will have a bigger picture of your environment.
Interesting. Beautiful. Well, we have been very proud to present the work, Emilie. We're very proud to be working with you. It's astonishing. I think it's just limitless. And people always ask me, how do you decide who you're going to work with at the gallery? And it always boils down to kind of ideas and projects and people that are really kind of reflect my own personal interest. There are so many trends in the art world and things that go from year to year and month to month, and I am pretty, after a while, I find that I'm very faithful kind of to things that interest me, that it's all about ideas that I find reflect kind of our contemporary society. And so this is definitely something that I've always been interested in. So it was a perfect convergence of the two of us. So thank you so much for being with us today.
I'm so glad I'm working with you, because I think we are on the same level, and we have a very intriguing exchanges of ideas.
It's lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you for all this beautiful work.
Joining.
I'm looking forward to seeing more, and I know that New York is going to be a real incubator for you. So
yes.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. All the people online, thank you for your questions. Thank you very much. Very, very nice conversation. And I can't wait to continue working with Emilie and to see what's next. So enjoy the weekend, stay warm, and I will say, with everything that's happening in the world today, we are sending our best wishes and our prayers and our thoughts to everybody who is in a situation of uncertainty and suffering. We send you our heart. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.